Good day. So I'm going to do a short video today related to step 3 of Odoo implementation. This one is related to configuration. Also, I'm taking my dog for a walk, and cute dog algorithm, why not? Eat that up. Anyways, I'm doing this on a walk because it's not really possible to do a screen share for this, because depending on what what modules you're using in Odoo, your configuration might be totally different. So, for example, in the simplest, let's say you just have contacts and CRM and sales, and that's it. I mean, your configuration and setup in Odoo would take literally like 10 minutes. You're setting up your users and employees, and those are two different things in Odoo, because you can have lots of employees, but only, let's say, a few people that are actually logging into Odoo that are users. And then let's say you got your sales or your CRM configuration, which is not too many options. And then you've got your sales options, which also not too many. And you check through a couple of boxes, and there might be some additional things like email configuration or Outlook configuration if you're doing Outlook functionality, for example, or Gmail configuration. So stuff like that. But otherwise, it's pretty simple. I will say with users, it can get a little more complicated, because you can have privileges that change, or permissions that change, if you change your modules. So that's just something to keep in mind. But otherwise, 3 modules, 10 clicks, you're up and running in Odoo. That simple. And you won't need us. Sorry, I wish I could say you would, but you won't need us for that kind of simple configuration, which is awesome, by the way. So that's a super simple configuration. It gets more tricky from there, right? So let's imagine let's imagine you're using POS and restaurant, and you want to set up payment processing. So that's going to be more complicated. You've got APIs to set up with your payment processor. You've got POS configuration for your restaurant. So that takes more steps. It's all there. It's all open. The one thing I will say about this is, I know I talk about Odoo being fun, and this to me is fun, because as you add a module, the configuration is kind of layered if the modules are integrated. So, for example, website and e-commerce is kind of the classic example. Let's imagine you start with website, you configure a website, and then you add e-commerce later. Well, when you do that, some of the website configuration needs to change well. And the minute that you add that layer of the additional module on, things just kind of work, right? But you will notice that some things have to be clicked on in website for all of the e-commerce functionality to work. What's kind of, I say, fun about that is, you kind of go back and forth, like, why isn't this working? Maybe there's something in website I need to do. You might ask the AI, Odoo's AI, why isn't this working? And usually it'll give you an answer to say, oh, try this configuration option, and then boop, all of a sudden everything's working. So that to me is kind of a fun troubleshooting thing in Odoo, that as you add modules, which are super easy, right? Go into apps and just add an app and install it and then configure it. It's kind of like playing, I guess, as much fun as we can have with, an ERP system playing. And that goes for really all of the modules that are interconnected. Now, I will say, some of them get much, much more complicated. Manufacturing and accounting being the big ones. Talked about this ad nauseum, but those two require a significant level of setup that isn't just part of the settings, but there's a significant amount of configuration that goes into, in manufacturing, doing your bill of materials and all of that, and in accounting, your chart of accounts, and if you're going to get into what's called analytic accounts with Odoo to manage costs, there's a lot of depth there, and that is one where you typically often will want a partner to help. You don't have to, but it depends a lot. A lot depends on how complicated your manufacturing processes are, but it's definitely one where you might want to do that. Okay, wow, that took longer than I thought. So cute dog, end of algorithm. Boop, 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 cute dog. Oh, look at the cute dog. Everyone loves her ears. Anyways, yeah, so configuration in Odoo depends a ton on what modules you're using, and it can be fun, and enjoy it, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or thoughts on it.